There is a strange man obsessed with Batman. Hello again, Bat fans! In this episode we check out the storyline called Prey. The Knights of Gotham are safer thanks to Batman. Unfortunately, some police officers are frustrated with him as he makes them look useless. One of them is Sergeant Court, who hates Batman for interrupting his raids. The topic of Batman is discussed on a TV talk show. There are three speakers: the Mayor of Gotham, Captain James Gordon, and Dr. Hugo Strange. The Mayor is against Batman, while Gordon tries to protect him. However, Hugo Strange makes the most important points as he analyzes Batman from a psychological perspective. Bruce Wayne watches the program and realizes that Hugo Strange is right about him. By the end of the TV show, the Mayor decides to create a task force to fight and capture Batman, and he assigns Gordon as the leader and Hugo Strange as a consultant. Frustrated, Bruce Wayne goes into the Batcave and continues working in his new vehicle to fight crime. Gordon gets the anti-Batman task force ready, and Sergeant Court becomes an enthusiastic member of the team. Meanwhile, Hugo Strange asks for police records about victims of crime, as to make a connection with Batman. Strange knows that Batman must be an obsessed man who suffered a past trauma, most likely related to crime. However, what nobody else knows is that Hugo Strange is obsessed with Batman, to the point where he would dress up as the Dark Knight in a makeshift costume. And if that wasn't crazy enough, Strange also keeps a female mannequin dressed in lingerie as his companion. Batman continues fighting crime and tries to capture the leader of a criminal gang, but he comes across the task force and everything falls apart. Batman manages to escape, but so does the criminal. The next day, there's a party at the Mayor's place, and Bruce Wayne goes to meet Hugo Strange. At the party, Bruce also meets Catherine, the Mayor's daughter, who supports Batman and his actions. This gets the attention of Hugo Strange, who asks Catherine on a date. In the meantime, Sergeant Court and the task force make some progress in the investigation against Batman, and Catwoman continues her activities, although the media keeps saying that she is Batman's partner. Gordon knows that Batman will be captured, and in order to help him, he comes up with an idea to contact the Dark Knight. A big searchlight is placed on the roof of the GCPD, and at night, Gordon turns it on and puts a bat-shaped piece of cloth on top of it, creating the bat signal. Batman shows up, and Gordon tells him that Hugo Strange is close to learn the truth, and Court is becoming more dangerous. In fact, Court is watching them both from the distance, and he decides that if Batman and Gordon are working together, he and Strange should join forces against them. At that moment, Strange is on his date with Catherine, but it all goes wrong when she admits that she only accepted to go out with him because of her father. Frustrated, Strange leaves her and starts working with Court, using hypnosis to turn him into his puppet. Thanks to this, Strange makes Court believe that he is better than Batman, and he gives Court an armored suit so that he can become an extremely violent vigilante called the Night Scourge. That night, Catwoman goes out to steal some jewels, but she is attacked by the Night Scourge. He would have killed her, but Batman arrives to save her. The Night Scourge tries to fight Batman, but he realizes that he is not good enough and he escapes. Batman tries to follow him, but he is knocked out by Catwoman. With Batman out of action, Hugo Strange makes Court dress up as Batman and sends him to kidnap Catherine. The fake Batman breaks into the Mayor's home and makes everyone believe that the real Batman is the kidnapper. The Mayor of Gotham declares war against Batman, and he tells the GCPD to shoot Batman on sight. However, it is Hugo Strange who keeps Catherine in his apartment for his own sick purposes. Batman finally recovers and realizes that the GCPD are trying to kill him. He learns about the kidnapping and deduces that Strange is somehow responsible. Batman goes to confront Strange, but Strange uses gas to attack the Dark Knight. Batman starts hallucinating about his parents' murder, and he falls into the river to avoid the police persecution. All of this has allowed Strange to deduce the truth, and he prepares a plan to get rid of Batman once and for all. When Bruce returns to Wayne Manor, Alfred is unconscious, and his parents are there, blaming Bruce for their deaths. The psychological shock is too strong, and Bruce stumbles across Wayne Manor until he falls into the Batcave, where he remains unconscious. With Batman out of action, the Night Scourge goes on a killing spree and nobody is able to stop him. Bruce spends a long time in the Batcave until he realizes that the time has come for the Bat to go out and hunt his prey. Batman arms himself with his new, powerful vehicle that will help him win the fight. Moments later, Batman confronts Hugo Strange and this time, he tricks Strange into confessing all of his crimes. Batman records everything and Gordon shows up to arrest the criminal. The police finds Catherine and Strange tries to run away from the place. The officers outside the place watch the man dressed as Batman and they shoot at him, thinking he is the Dark Knight. Strange is wounded and he falls to the river. Finally, Gordon tells Batman that the Night Scourge is Sergeant Kord. The Dark Knight confronts the Night Scourge and a great fight begins. The Night Scourge is deadly using weapons, but the Dark Knight disarms the enemy with a little help from Catwoman. The Night Scourge tries to get away, but Batman chases him down with a powerful Batmobile all the way to the GCPD, where everyone realizes that Sergeant Kord is the wanted vigilante. The police takes down the violent Kord, and the Batman's name is cleared. Hugo Strange has not been found, but the alliance between Batman and Gordon has become stronger, just like the bat signal in the sky. Batman Prey is a 5-part storyline from Legends of the Dark Knight, published in 1990. It was written by Doug Mensch and illustrated by Paul Gulacy, and it marked the return of Hugo Strange to the Batman comics. The last time Hugo Strange appeared was in Batman Annual number 10, also written by Doug Mensch in one of his last Batman stories before the end of his run in 1986. And since Prey marks the return of Mensch to the Batman comics after 4 years, it is a rather remarkable coincidence that the stories have the same villain. The story was illustrated by Paul Gulacy, who had no prior experience with the Dark Knight, and as a new Batman artist he is not that bad. There's a certain aesthetic to his art. His style is very polished and he has a very realistic and grounded vision. The shapes and forms of everything are quite defined thanks to precise lines and shadows. Paul's knowledge of anatomy is also quite impressive and perhaps a bit controversial. The bodies of the characters in this story are remarkable. Not all of them, of course. I'm talking specifically about Batman, Hugo Strange and the Night Scourge. They all have amazing bodies, sculpted to perfection, with all the muscles very defined. In the case of Hugo Strange, it doesn't make sense, as he is not a good fighter, but Batman's body looks perfect. Now, Paul Gulacy was not only good at drawing muscles, and here's the controversial part. Throughout the story there are many sexually suggestive images using the female body, which is puzzling, considering there are only 3 notable females in the story. 2 of them are minor characters and 1 of them is a mannequin. While it's understandable that Catwoman should look sexy with her new skin-tight suit, there are also moments when we see Selina Kyle doing gymnastics in an odd position or even her naked silhouette. What I'm saying is that a sexy Catwoman is okay in my book, but there's no need to sexualize her secret identity as well. On the other hand, there is Catherine, who spent half of the story partially naked and restrained by Hugo Strange. While that's more of a plot issue, it doesn't help that she is visually attractive even in those circumstances. In short, Paul Gulacy is a good artist with great skills in perspective and realism, but also too enthusiastic about anatomy, making super buff guys and hyper sexy ladies. He is a great visual storyteller, but it's nothing outstanding when it comes to Batman. Now, Doug Mensch did a terrific job with this story. He shows us, through Hugo Strange, that he understands the psychology of Batman, his motivations, his weaknesses and his strengths. That's something I admire in any Batman writer. However, as good as this story is, it's not perfect. The characterization of Batman is a bit off. For one thing, he takes a lot of unnecessary risks, which conveniently made the plot move forward by putting all the odds against Batman. He exposes himself to unnecessary dangers and he also talks too much. All of these could be explained because these were still the early days of Batman in Gotham. This whole story takes place sometime after Batman Year 1, and that's why Gordon is still a captain, there is no bat signal and the Batmobile is just introduced. All of these would explain why Batman acts as such a rookie, or it could just be terrible editorial guidance. This is also the first appearance of Hugo Strange in the new continuity. Here he is a psychoanalyst instead of a mad scientist, which is ironic considering how crazy he is now, with the mannequin and all that. It reminds me of Clayface 3. But other than that, he is very similar to the classic Hugo Strange, as this one also has his obsession with learning Batman's identity and dressing up like him. The story even ends with Strange disappearing in what seems to be a fatal ending, in the grand old tradition of the character, who has always disappeared in the same way only to reappear sometime in the future. Maybe it's all not very original, but it's a classic trope that works from time to time. The minor characters are also well written. Gordon apparently knows the identity of Batman, although it is never confirmed. But that works perfectly, because having Gordon know the truth and never saying it makes his relation with Batman much more interesting. The Night Scourge, on the other hand, is quite a gimmick that only works in this story, so it's good that he dies at the end. Also, I find it very interesting that Mensch created another character with the word Night in his name. In his Bronze Age Batman run, he created the Thief of Night, who then transformed into the Night Slayer. He also created Nocturne, whose real name was Natalia Knight. And let's not forget about Moon Knight at Marvel. I'm aware that's a different kind of Knight, but still, it is Night. Certainly, Doug Mensch had a fascination with the night. Now, the weakest character here is Catwoman, and that's because her role is so insignificant that it wouldn't have made a difference if she wasn't in the story at all. I'm not sure why Mensch needed Catwoman here, as she doesn't really matter in this story. Now, leaving the characters aside, there's one thing that bothers me about the story, and that is the ending. It feels absolutely rushed. As I said before, all the odds were against Batman, even by the start of the 5th issue, and then everything works out in a matter of 12 pages, leaving no room for a proper aftermath. It's the same thing that happened with Batman the Cult, which also has a rushed ending. And the last bit of criticism about this story is that, just like Year 1, it uses the cursive letter for Batman's thoughts once again, making it hard to read. I guess DC was in love with that font back then, but I'm telling you, it doesn't work. Although the word prey has little to do with the story, it is still absolutely entertaining and an interesting tale about Batman and his psychology. Plus, it also looks very pretty. Sometimes too pretty. And speaking of pretty things, in the next episode, Tim Drake officially becomes Robin. If you don't want to miss that, subscribe now and don't forget to leave a like. Until then, Godspeed, my friends.